Let's fast forward, if you don't mind. I'd like to know what it was like for the Midnight Express reunion shows that you started doing in, what, 2003, 2004? 2004.
Two weeks after Bubba passed away was our first one. Because that's what upset me then, was that, we would have got a chance to be all together. But, here's the thing. And trying to go back and do this as clearly and concisely as possible. Dennis left in March of 1987. Nobody ever knew why, including me and Bobby, for a long time. As a result, there was never heat amongst the team. There was consternation, befuddlement. Where the fuck did Dennis go? And then there was some element of, how could he have done this? Because we're still, and a main event fucking earning six figures plus each attraction, and suddenly we turn around and he just ain't there. And we don't see him for a year and a half. So, but there was no heat, there was no fight, there was no, disagreements or whatever. So we soldiered on with Stan, and Stan fit right in because we'd all known each other again, and he was smart to tag team wrestling, and it fit. And he was in need of a spot then, so he was anxious to prove himself, because it was going to end up being his fairly much his last big run there. Because normally the Fabs was a pretty big run, and you would have thought that would have been the one you get, but he got a second one even bigger. But anyway, when Dennis came back to do the original midnight angle, as we mentioned, he showed back up in the AWA, back in the wrestling business, because when he left us for a year, he was nowhere. We didn't know where he was. And then all we knew was the travel agent found that he had some tickets that Crockett had already given him for the towns he's booked in, and he changed them for a ticket to Denver, Colorado. So that's all we knew for a long time, was that Dennis is in Denver some kind of way. Well, then the AWA had started. They needed talent. They were on their dying days, and they were doing the TV in Las Vegas, as close to Denver, and they needed quality guys. So they made a deal with Dennis to come back and work with Randy Rose and Paul Lee as the original Midnight, and they had the run on TV as the AWA Tag Team Champions. We still didn't have a phone number or anything on Dennis, and we didn't know at the time, so we're not going to fucking find him. But then when, the AWA was, the original Midnight, I can't remember now chapter and verse, but the original Midnight was finished with the AWA, even if the AWA wasn't completely finished at that point. Paul Lee had called me, because of course we knew each other. And I said, well, you want to fucking come in if we can work it out? And so that's when I went and pitched the angle to Dusty. Have them come in. Let's do the feud over the name. Hit me with the phone. I've told this story before. Dusty asked me and Bobby. He didn't ask Stan, because Stan wouldn't have had a vested interest in this. He said, I won't bring Dennis Condrey back unless you and Bobby say yes, because he left before. I said, no, this isn't good. We've talked. I've talked to Paul Lee. They're all on board. And the first time that me and Bobby actually saw Dennis, that time was when he got to Atlanta TV that day. And he still didn't explain to us what had gone on, because there was kind of a little cold. But then we did the angle, and everybody went crazy over it, and blah, blah, blah. We didn't know it was going to be fucked up shortly afterwards. But anyway, that lasted, as we've talked about, 10 or 12 weeks or whatever it was, and then Dusty loses the book. Crockett gets it, books us a loser leave town match because he doesn't like Randy Rose's work, wants to get Dennis a new partner. George Scott comes in, says he'd rather keep the original Midnight and get rid of me and fucking Bobby and Stan. It was a goddamn clusterfuck. And then, because Dennis didn't agree to come in for a different partner, because Crockett didn't realize that the whole deal was that Randy and Dennis were the original Midnight Express. It fucked the whole thing up, and Dennis no-showed again. And we didn't see, that was 1989, and we didn't see him again until 2004. And then he had made an appearance at one of the wrestling shows in Birmingham and gave his phone number to several people. And he was in the process of moving back from Denver to Alabama. And that's when we got his number, and I called. Everybody called and talked to each other. And that's when he was able to tell me and Bobby what it was. And I'm not going to say that now, what it was. It was nothing to do with the wrestling business, and it was nothing to do with us. And we would have understood if he'd told us, and that he said that was his one regret that he didn't. So then we started doing the reunions, and the first one was in Kingsport, Tennessee, at the old Civic Auditorium up there, Ron Wright Country. A match with the Rock and Roll Express. And then the following week, that was just Bobby and Dennis and I. And then the following week, it was all four of us with Stan at Ring of Honor in Philly for that big return. And then with the Fan Fests and legend shows and et cetera, for several years, I wasn't at most of them because I was doing OVW, and then I went to TNA. But I was at a lot of the bigger ones, especially the Fan Fest. But Bobby and Dennis especially wrestled on quite a few shows and drew some money into Carolina. I think they did a show in the Carolinas with the Rock and Roll in Lenoir. Well, I know they did 3 or 4 sellouts at that Lenoir Rec Center, 2,000 people, 3 or 4 sellouts in a row. But I think most of those matches were with the Rock and Roll Express. They were doing good business at that point. But, Dennis was in better shape than most everybody else because he took a significant chunk of time off. So, but anyway, that was more fun because we used to joke about it. We used to say, Jesus Christ, these Fan Fests, everybody's so happy to see us and so happy to get their pictures taken. And we make the same thing. We used to have to drive a 500-mile round trip, take bumps, get beat up and potentially stabbed or jumped on by fans and, have our cars trashed. The fans at Alexandria, Louisiana found out after the tape aired where we tarred and feathered Magnum TA on television in order to shame them into giving us a shot at the titles, calling him a chicken. The fans recognized Bobby's car outside the hotel we were staying at in Alexandria the week after that TV show played, and they tarred and feathered his car. But anyway, so we used to get, in Lake Charles, they took Dennis Condry's van that he bought from Stan Lane and almost doomed us all. In Lake Charles, they took glue and shot it in all the door keyholes back when your doors still had keyholes. And they took lipstick and they would color over the headlights so that you couldn't see out on the highway. And that's the place where they used to put Drano and water pistols to be able to, because the cops were so good, they had the heels surrounded, so they would try to shoot you in the eyes with the Drano, with the water pistol. They were creative. But yeah, Bobby, he took forever to get the tar and feathers off his car in Alexandria, and Dennis had to have, I can't remember what he had to have done to get the glue out of the keyholes. We all had to get key locking gas tank lids custom on our cars because people would sugar the fucking tank.